But a lot of times there are specific clues that a composer will give us. Sometimes he or she will ask the orchestra to imitate the sound of real life things, events, whether it's bells ringing or someone's voice or an animal sound, for example, or a loud percussive bang that might represent an explosion or thunder or what have you. Sometimes there are those moments in the music that almost act like mileposts and let us know where we are in the progress of a story. So those are some of the ways that composers can convey a narrative, a story line, a plot line in music. So in the Danse Macabre by Camille Saint-Saëns, French composer, who wrote Carnival of the Animals, by the way, a piece that many young people will probably be familiar with, we have essentially a tone poem, a story told through music. The piece is 7.5 minutes long or so, and there is a character, there is a setting, and there's definitely a plot. The character that we meet is a demon, some kind of a monster figure, and the setting is a graveyard. And it's not just a graveyard, but it's a graveyard at a specific time. It is 12 midnight, and we know that because at the very beginning of the piece, you hear 12 strokes of a clock, which are played by the harp, and it goes by pretty quickly. It's faster chiming clock than most that I'm aware of. But if you count them at the beginning, you'll hear 12, and that lets you know that it's 12 midnight. And then we hear the demon kind of tune up his violin. And his violin has a very distinct quality to it, which is that the last string, the highest string, the E string, is tuned down a half step. And when he plays this, it creates a sound that sounds broken down, worn out of tune, sounds very unpleasant because he's a demon. He has a really awful sounding violin, I guess you might say. So the composer has specifically asked the concertmaster in this case to play in that particular way with an untuned violin, essentially, or retuned violin. And then he begins to play a dance, kind of a waltz. And so on. And as he does this, the energy increases bit by bit, and eventually some of the skeletons who've been sleeping there in the graveyard get up and begin to dance. And we know that's happening because we hear the xylophone come in. The xylophone is that instrument in the percussion section with these wooden bars, and it has a very sort of brittle sound. It sounds like bones, I suppose, knocking against one another. That's certainly what the composer wanted to represent. And so when you hear that, you know that that's the moment in the story where those skeletons are dancing. And then the thing just kind of gets louder and still faster, and it just turns into just a really whirling sort of a bacchanal. And then it comes to an abrupt stop all at once. And just the first rays of light begin to peer over the horizon. I guess these things can't go on once the light of day is seen. And we know it's morning because we hear the sound of a rooster crowing. Not an actual rooster, of course, but an oboe who plays pum, 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 pum. I guess that's Saint-Saëns' idea of a rooster crow as played by the oboe. But when you hear that, you'll notice that everything stops. The energy kind of just fades, and then there's a strong chord played by the strings, a little bit of timpani, and then the piece kind of just relaxes until the very end. So by listening to those mileposts, you hear the 12 o'clock at night. We hear the untuned violin kind of just getting warmed up. We hear skeletons dancing, and then we hear the dawn, the rooster crow, which suggests the first light of dawn. By following those four details, you will know where you are in the story, where you are in terms of the plot. But so this is how a composer can convey narrative, can convey a storyline without using any words at all.